Holy hell! I heard this meeting is being recorded. You too?
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's got this very robotic voice that says it too. It's not even like a,
All right.
yeah.
So, okay, I'll cut it off. Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Amar with ZenMate. I think that we should leave in that beginning part in the recording. I think that's perfect.
Fair enough.
I think it's the perfect start to a podcast episode. That's great.
Less work for me, the better, right? I can just
Yeah.
publish the episode like that. So, sorry for the weird start, but what are we gonna talk about today, Amar?
Before we get to what we're going to talk about today, I want to talk to the audience quickly here about how difficult my life can be here sometimes when I'm working with Jeremy and trying to help him with his marketing. That we had an episode go live last week, and Jeremy didn't tell me, and so no one saw our last episode. We've got to promote it to people somehow. It's not just going to take off on its own, Jeremy.
If you're watching this episode, just subscribe, right? So you're never gonna miss one, because obviously I'm very terrible at spreading the word. So you're not going to hear it in any other way than through YouTube reminders.
I have now subscribed to our channel through my personal YouTube account, so I get notified without you having to tell me when a new episode like goes live. So I will go and promote the last episode and the one that I guess just went live today. So anyways,
All right.
Today we're going to be talking about how we manage our teams and kind of the hierarchies like within the teams, how we kind of work with like different departments and get different things done within the business. This should be a pretty like free-flowing conversation that Jeremy and I were talking a little bit before we hit the record button, and we decided to not have too much of a structure to this. So we're not sure how granular we're going to be or how much of like a 10,000 like foot view it's kind of going to be like about our teams, but we figured that we can talk about this more in the future if there is interest. So is that about right, Jeremy?
That's about right. There's like so many different angles we could tackle this beast, because basically it's just, how do you run your business? Would you get that, in a bar in Chiang Mai? It's like, okay, well, you got the whole night. Let's get it. Obviously, you will ask, what part specifically are you interested in? So we're gonna see where it goes. Like, if I ask you this question, how do you start, Amar?
So if I was actually going to answer that question, I would probably start at like a very like high level. So obviously what we do is like we help maid service owners, to like manage their scheduling. And so then in terms of like departments, like I think about the company as like departments, right? So we've got product, marketing, you've got success, which is kind of sales and support, and then you have the operations side of the team, and then within all of those, then you can go more and more granular. And so each unit within the business is taking care of a specific task that takes us towards the goals. And almost all of like my people problems, my systems problems, process problems, all of that can really be broken down into those high level categories.
Makes sense. I got less actually. I'm thinking of less at the moment. I have mostly marketing. It's a pretty new department for us, as you know. We got support, which I think we're really already acing it. And then we got dev. The rest pretty much fall on my plate, whether it's like even bookkeeping. I do bookkeeping once a year. It's a pain, takes me a few weekends. Sure, I could get it to someone else, but I like to also stay close to the numbers, so I get a better grasp on I see your big smile here, because I know you're not too much of a number guys when it comes to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you like doing that stuff, then by all means. I mean, my suggestion there would be that you should pay for help and then review all of the numbers closely. Like, just because you want to be close to the numbers doesn't mean that you have to do all of that like yourself. A lot of like outsourcing and hiring and getting the help that you need is about getting someone to do 80% of the work. So maybe you still come to all your own conclusions and make your own decisions, but they do all the compilation of stuff. They track everything. Like, dude, I don't know. You should have those weekends with your kids, Jeremy. There's only so many weekends that you
Oh, this
have
is a
until they
funny
leave
thing.
us forever.
My kids actually help me, and they get a bit of
Oh,
money out
really?
of
It's
that.
like a
Yeah.
like. Oh, okay, okay.
But
All
that's not
right.
the
So
point.
so
It's
in
like
that
I'm
case,
in
you can do a
Switzerland, so
nice thing.
obviously getting 1 hour of
Yeah.
someone is like getting 1 month's salary. So it's like anyway.
That's true.
It's a bit more difficult. Plus, we got some regulations, so I have to print everything. I can't just like give the bank
Yeah.
statement. Is to like, hey, this is what we pay. It's like you have to print every receipt. It's a
Yeah.
massive pain, but get used to it. Been
Yeah.
doing that
Yeah.
for 7 years now. In fact, this is interesting. I actually paid my accountant, or the first accountant I had. It was like about like $100 an hour, and it was like a very cheap one in Switzerland. And so I paid him
Yeah.
like just an afternoon to just teach me how to do bookkeeping. Like it's cool. You just go to the experts,
Okay.
you pay
Interesting.
them. It's like 4 hours. It's an
Yeah.
afternoon. It's like a workshop, a special workshop. And I just squeezed him with lots of questions, and he taught me everything about how to
Yeah.
do bookkeeping. But I still
Amazing.
get a more professional accountant that reviews everything, file the thing. So just to make sure I'm totally compliant with everything. Yeah. So anyway, that's not how I run my business.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's
Makes
part of
sense. Makes sense.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just one thing about what you were saying to bring this back to like to the hierarchy and kind of how you're thinking about stuff. So I would highly recommend thinking about your company in those different departments, even if four of those departments are currently just you.
That's right.
Right? That you have to remember that even though you're the one doing the accounting, that doesn't mean that there's not an accounting arm or like
Sure.
accounting responsibilities within the business. Because if you're looking to begin to hire and to build out a team around you, that's the kind of thing that should be considered. It's fine if you look at that and you go, you know what, I'm not going to. It's quality time with my kids. I enjoy staying close to the numbers and whatever. That's fine. But that should just be a very conscious decision that you make, right?
No, absolutely, 100%. I am happy to be the CFO of my company at the moment, right? And so that's to be clear, but I do understand this is a
Okay.
different department.
Well,
Yeah.
easy for you to say when you're just stacking dollar bills.
Well, dollar isn't worth anything anymore, right? It's melting. It's like an ice cream in Chiang Mai at the moment, right? Outside. So yeah. But cool. So
Yeah.
we have those different departments. Another thing that I think is very core to how you run a company is the cadence. Like what cadence uh, is your company operating under? So for me, for a very long time, I've been operating on a weekly cadence. That means like all my meetings are always on a weekly. The horizon is always weekly. And that was because primarily my business was booming so fast. Like we were like doing 4% growth week on week. That I think it was, a good horizon. But the other cadence we have is yearly, where every year we sort of like look at, okay, what's our goal for this year? What we're going to try to achieve? What's important for us? Where we're going to put the emphasis? This involves more the whole team to get them on the bus, get their brain, as to what they're thinking and bounce some ideas and stuff like that. So it's better than just me in that sense. I still get to take the decision at the end, but it's still very interesting to get everyone's just sort of input, especially from different departments. And then we don't do quarterly. That's something I'd like to go at some point, like going for quarterly cadence. And we just recently started doing monthly cadence. We don't have any meeting to support it per se yet, but that's been huge for me. That's something I overlooked for way too long. I should have moved from weekly to monthly, probably 2 years ago, I think. And we're only starting doing that this year. So yeah, I think the cadence of your company also reflect the growth and the speed at which it moves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. We have a weekly cadence in ZenMade, and we used to have a somewhat annual cadence as well, but Corona has really like put like an end to that
Yeah.
because it was kind of based around annual events in the industry. And so And so we're having to kind of refine our cadence like there, because right now it's just kind of more of like every couple of months I'll just kind of check in with people, right, and kind of see how things are going. But in terms of like, we don't have too many projects that we work on that are more than like maybe a couple of months like ahead of time. Most of the time we're doing like kind of just in time, like kind of work, and that still holds true like even today. So we don't really work on too many cadences of like longer than like a couple of weeks at a time. So yeah, I don't know, I could probably be a lot more structured there. I think that's a very interesting like sort of like the time frames that you're considering.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what's your cadence in your company, just look at your meetings, your meeting calendars. So for us, the week is probably the smallest sort of
Mhm.
unit that could be easily structured. So on a Monday afternoon, because we're working different time zones. So for me, it's Monday afternoon. For some, it's Monday morning. But on the Monday, we basically say this is the thing we're going to work on this week for everyone. Every department is talking, going through the past week's number, seeing what any type of input or communication that should happen. Like for example, support is also going to report the thing that stand out last week about like, hey, we realized that we had like two
Yeah.
people or three people wondering about XYZ. Maybe we could, improve how we communicate this and things like that. So it's like an opportunity for
Mhm.
all the different departments to communicate to each other and also get some visibility as to what everyone is working on. We also have a sprint planning, but that's more like
Okay.
specific departments. So this is we have a sprint planning where we define what story we're going to work on for the development department, which I lead at the moment. And on we have a few check in from time to time, like daily stand ups and stuff like that during the week. But on the Friday, we discuss about what everything's been done. It's like the demo, Friday demo time. So development is going to show
Mm,
what's been achieved, marketing as well. Like here's the thing we put in place, and it's also very very casual as well. We're working all together on the afternoon, and then it's a bit more relaxed. It's
yeah.
like you know I tell sometimes some stories about in the past. Sometimes we discuss some weird stuff that happened, or someone has six cats. And just, those sort of thing. Like we're a bit more relaxed. It's a bit like you're working next to the water cooler. It's not as bad as just talking, but it's there's a little bit
Mhm.
of that whenever someone wants to crack something. So that's a sort of like weekly cadence. On top of that, we have the yearly cadence where it starts in October when I start gathering every department. Well, every department, that's not true. The financial department, which is myself, do produce a whole document as to like, well, here's where we are in terms of numbers. These are the things that stands out. These are the number of demos we did. These are basically all the sort of like numbers that sort of like define the business. And then from that point on, we're starting brainstorming session as to, okay, where do we think the business is going forward given the current state of the market. And that's roughly around October, which in fact should be our team retreat, but again, COVID, thank you. And then by January, we sort of like start getting a implementation of those sort of like, let's go in that direction. Like every department needs to figure out like, what does that mean for us between October and
Mm,
December, and then we start implementing that in January. That's sort of like the two big
gotcha.
cadence we have.
Interesting. Hmm. Yeah, I've always looked at that as like, I always feel like those sort of arbitrary dates are just kind of like made up for us. It's once we decide that we're going to do something, we just kind of like go that direction. We are beginning to plan things a little bit like slower, but we're very much just like, if we finish a project and we're ready to take on the next thing, it doesn't matter whether it's mid-November or like
Yeah.
mid-January. We just sort of like move on to the next thing. But I can see how like both would get things done in their own ways, like faster and everything. So that's interesting.
Well,
Yeah, it's funny that this is one of those things that we that I think that we've talked about probably even on this like podcast already, is how like our businesses are very reflective of like who we are as founders,
yeah,
right?
that's true.
That
That's very
you're
true.
much more of a planner, right? And for
Ah, I
me,
hate
I'm like,
planning.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, if I say that we're going to do something and it's not happening in the next week, then I'm going to forget about it and have to reprioritize it 4 weeks down the road, anyways, and we're going to get to it, right?
But this
So,
is
like,
exactly
we
the
might as
point.
well.
That's exactly the point. It's like the only reason why we got this is to help us stay focused on what matters, right? Because if you, it's very rare that from week to week, what matters is really drastically different. Like a good example is for us at the moment is lead capturing. This is what is important for us, right? And you can't sort of like put a whole thing in place in terms of implementation and execution over like 1 week period. You do need probably more because you need to look at the numbers and then maybe there is some stuff we need to improve and things like that. It's like it is like longer sort of like cycle when you do those sort of like projects. And so to help us, then we have some structure in place like that. It's like when we got some like, ooh, we could do that, we could do that. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Let's put it on a backlog and let's look into that, at a sort of like once the product is finished. So it's to help us being structured. And the second thing, the reason why we also have those sort of like cadence here like that is because we can scale much faster. So right now, this is probably unnecessary, quote unquote. But I think it's a good sort of like discipline and practice to put this in place so that as we're scaling up, then this sort of like structure is actually going to be able to scale much better, even without me being the guy who actually run everything. Like I can then go on holiday, and then people know the cadence, and then we'll execute the cadence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Amar is very
Yeah.
convinced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll have to agree. I'm not going to say we'll have to agree to disagree, but I look forward to seeing how we both do going forward. I'm interested to see how these things change as we both like scale, right? What's funny is I think that I'm going to get a lot more like your setup. I'm just wondering if I'm going to feel like I wish that I'd done it sooner, or
That's a
that
great
like I'm going
question.
to be happy that like we've done it this way, right?
Because I've been
So
in like
yeah,
15
that's
or
cool.
13 different companies from very different size. And so, that helped me to figure out
Yeah.
like, okay, well, that's a sort of next step, when we go like 30 people, when you go like 50 people, when you got 80 people kind of thing, because I've been in all those different companies. And so I kind of get, how they were running. So, but it's a great
Yeah.
question. Like, at what point do you actually feel the need to actually, put a structure like that personally for you, or maybe you'll never need it?
Mhm.
It's a great question. I don't know. The only thing I know
Yeah.
is that if you want to sort of like disappear and everything sort of like run according to your sort of like design, you're gonna have to put things in place, like discipline, whether you want it or not. Otherwise, it just happened chaotically.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what's funny is like I think that we have a lot of discipline. Like I think that we are actually very focused, but I think that we just do things in like very like different timelines. Like one example
mhm.
actually is, so you were saying lead capture was the example that like that you gave. The way that I would look at lead capture to me is actually something that you can set up very, very quickly, but then it needs time from there for you to kind of collect data and then to make the adjustments that you're talking about. So what I
Exactly.
would do is
Mhm.
I would set it up, and then I would move on to the next like quick win, and I would continue doing that throughout our marketing funnel. And then after like a week or two, I would come back. Even though it requires you to change tasks, I would come back after 2 weeks, review the numbers, make changes, and then move on to the next thing and on to the next improvement. And because like you're dealing with marketing stuff, you're going to be waiting quite a while to collect a lot of like those numbers. So I've always been focused on fast action, even if it's like imperfect. And I think that's definitely, I know that that's like served us well, but I think that might be like a difference in just like approaches.
No, it's a great point. So for me, I see like if our goal is effectively to capture more, it's like we may implement this little thing, but we say like, okay, well, what could we also do to capture more leads in a different way? So maybe we'll put a hello bar, then we'll put some, call to action within the blog, and all those sort of things kind of adds up. So we don't wait until the hello bar really, show any progress or anything before moving to the next one. You're absolutely correct. You can, easily gain some momentum by connecting multiple different tasks. Definitely. So
yeah.
Are you going to consider, you think, monthly cadence at some point? Like, I know I'm moving to monthly cadence, but one of the thing is that we don't have any meeting for that, which means for me, it's still like in the air. It's still wishful thinking until we actually put things in place, with most likely in the calendar. Then there is no real monthly cadence at the moment. We're just thinking of doing it, collecting the data, but we're not actually, putting placeholder that says, this is this sort of thing, like a regular monthly report or a regular meeting or whatever.
Yeah, monthly meetings don't tend to work as well for me personally, that I really don't like scheduling monthly meetings, so I don't know if that's going to change. Like, I've heard that when you're early on, your company will reflect like the founder, but then like there's a point at which point it begins
It
to
doesn't
reflect the
scale.
opposite of the founder. I'm wondering if like that's going to happen like here soon. Yeah, that like at some point it stops like scaling or whatever. So yeah, so we'll have to see. The only thing that I could think of, I guess it would depend on what sort of monthly cadence, because one thing that just occurred to me is I'd be happy to start setting up like one-on-ones with a couple of my team members on a monthly like basis. But what I'd probably do is I'd set those up so like they're always Tuesday afternoon. So it'd be monthly for everyone else. But for me, I would just talk to two
Yeah,
or three
of course.
people per week. Right. And so that that's something that I could definitely see doing.
Yeah, this is a very interesting point, because I think you got a call every month with John, right? So that could be your monthly cadence,
Uh,
the one who actually review the
yeah.
numbers with you, right? So you are
Yeah.
technically still also on a monthly cadence that way. Like every month you review the numbers.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I was more thinking of like within the team, right? Because I have a couple monthly cadences, but it's mostly
Okay.
weekly, like with you guys on the mastermind, with the exec call,
Yep.
the marketing team call, the dev call, all of those. And then monthly would be, yeah, that with John. I'm gonna have another monthly call with my like virtual CFO now. And then there's probably like I've got a couple quarterly calls then as well. Quarterly call with Bunty to go over our
Ah,
paid
you're ahead of
ads,
me
right?
on
Stuff
that.
like that.
I
Yeah.
don't have any quarterly stuff yet. Oh, the 101 is interesting. We do it every 2 weeks. Maybe it's because we're still a small
Okay.
team, but I think 2 weeks cadence is good enough so that I can give feedback, or help people, because my goal is really to help people succeed at my level. It's not me, succeeding per se. And the
Yeah.
101 is a good place for doing that. Like, I can give feedback when I see that, oh, you're going in a direction that may actually not be that great, for carrying on forward or being as efficient as you could be. But if you wait like monthly, this is probably like too long ago. It's harder to correct and all those sort of things. So I don't wait until someone go in a ditch to actually say, well, you should have turned left. I actually just see them turning a little bit, turning a bit right, for example, and say, hey, notice you're turning right. Maybe it's best, turning a little bit left, which makes
Yeah.
every remark and feedback I give, whether it's a positive or negative feedback, not the end of the world, or no big deal. Like, I remember, whenever I was working in a real company, not that I'm not working in a real company at the moment.
I was about to say we never think of our companies as real
Yes,
companies
true.
ever. It's so
But
funny.
when like a more established corporate type of company, I remember like every time, your manager come and say, hey, Jeremy, can we talk 5 minutes? You're like, holy shit, what's going on? What is like went so bad that, they feel like they have to take time with you and talk to you. And then I don't want that to happen. This is not like, it's fine to go on a call and say, Amar, next time, this happens, it'll be cool if, you try to do this and that. And then that's it. That's the end of the story. It's a 5 minutes and it is just like, move on. And maybe that person say, oh, I have some problem with that. I was like, okay, cool. How can I help you? or like sometimes I use some metaphor in order to
Yeah.
help people visualize, like, okay, well, you're just at the beginning of the race, like you can't expect to win straight away. Let's see, well, let's put some milestone in place so you get the feeling of progress or
Yeah.
whatever it's coming. That's so that's every 2 weeks we
Yeah.
do that.
Nice. Nice. Okay, cool. All right. I could see doing that. I could see setting up those one-on-ones. That's a nice takeaway from this. That's a nice takeaway from this episode.
I've been doing one-on-ones for a very long time, even when I was in the corporate world. They help for a few reasons. The first one is it builds relationship, because when we go on a call and I care about you, it's like, obviously, that's relationship building right there and then. The other thing is that it helps me getting more kick-ass coworker, like, for lack of better term, is like they will improve, their
Yeah.
performance will improve. If I go on a call with someone on one-on-ones and their performance doesn't improve, I should stop what I'm doing, because obviously that doesn't work. So the point is really to help develop people, help them grow. And then the third point, which is very important, is give them a place where they can share with me any concern they have, any worry they have, any topic they want to discuss about that doesn't necessarily have a good place. That can be personal issues. That can be, like, in fact, yeah, we had someone with sort of like personal, issues dealing. I'm not a shrink. That's not my goal. But I say, like, hey, you know what? The company is here to help you out. So don't stress out too much about that. This is not a problem. Thank you for letting me know. We're gonna plan ahead for that. And so, that's a lot of relief for that person. And I think those places are really helpful for the individual, but also for me, because I get to know them better. I get to know where their strength is, where their weaknesses is. And let's say, let's work on this, for the next 3 months. Like, how do you feel about, like, becoming better at X, or just basically telling them that, hey, if you carry on like that, that this is causing a problem with this and this and that. And because I help them visualize, then they can act on it. And in fact, we had one of our coworker had improved tremendously. In fact, and I do attribute that a lot to the one-on-ones we had. Like, now she's like freaking rock star. But anyway.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice. We've definitely had that with a couple of folks on the team over the years. So yeah, that's really great to hear. And I've seen you grow personally, like, a lot with that, like, over, like, the years, right, of working with people like that and helping them to reach their potential. That's been, like, really good to see as well. I think it's beginning to pay big dividends.
Which is funny, actually, because people, when you put that sort of like in your, job description, you say, and then you have, I don't put it anymore, I think, like, you have like a one-on-one with a founder to help you grow and so on. People don't value that, but it's like freaking high value, and people don't necessarily see that. I don't know, because they're thinking like, oh, I'm just going to have someone just micromanage me or whatever. But it's like, from a personal development, I mean, it's huge. And and it helps me too as well. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I get a lot of great insights from those one-on-one calls. I did a little round of those, like a couple, like, last week maybe. I did a small round of those where I talked to quite a few people on the team one-on-one that I don't really like as much anymore. And each one had a couple just like gold
nuggets. You don't really like anymore the people? That's like, what did you say?
No, that I don't really speak with, with anymore.
I think you said, like, oh, well, the video will tell. We can rewatch it.
Yeah, no, it's like our head of support, for example, that the support call now falls at 3 or 4 in the morning for me. So I'm never on the support call anymore. And our head of support isn't actually on the exec team. We probably should make her on the exec team, but we haven't yet. And so, like, with her, I chat with her on Slack a lot. We overlap on a lot of hours, but we almost never jump on a call. So I jumped on a call with her, and just a couple things like that. So
hey, that's another good point. How's your organization?
I feel like we can. You go.
No, sorry, go ahead. There's a little bit of lag.
Um, I I was just gonna say I feel like we haven't actually talked about the hierarchies like too much, but I feel like it's definitely been like an interesting like conversation into how we think about like quite a few things. But there's definitely so much more that we could talk about here.
Cool. So should we stop it here and then just go into one of those topics later, or do you want to briefly touch maybe on the hierarchy at the moment?
Yeah, let's maybe touch on it just quickly, like just a little bit more. Like let's see. I talked about like the different like departments and stuff. Well, so one question for you is: it still sounds like your company very much like operating as like one cohesive unit, or do you kind of have like business units and like business timelines like at this point, or like not business time like department timelines at this point?
Okay, that's a great point. So for us, we had like a massive evolution. I mean, we're
Mhm,
7 years old now, and for the first 5 years, I was just operating as, it's my job, and I have,
mhm.
someone in support helping me answering tickets, right?
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, I really migrated toward I want to build a real company, and not
Mhm,
just having a job. So for that, there's a lot of things that needs to be put in place, and maybe that's a cast in itself. But the idea is that I changed the. I always think of that actually, like in Paris, like in France, you got like Paris, and then everything is just like a star. It goes to the other towns. It's like Paris is the center of everything, and then everything just like, sure, you got
yeah.
Marseille, you got Lyon, you got Bordeaux, you got other sort of like towns, but it's like it's very a star type of
Mhm,
um, design, I would say. Like everything, like if you want something to move, it has to go,
yeah.
into Paris, kind of thing. Now, this is the sort of like model I was operating as. This is just my job. This is just me, and then got someone helping me in support, and I
Mhm,
migrated over this thing that I'm doing right now, which is like elevating all the person on the department not to be the one responsible anymore, uh, not responsible, that's not the correct word, but not the one they always have to go to or interact through in order to go to the next department, right?
the bottleneck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I become the bottleneck as a sort of like,
Yeah.
you know, default in the end. But so I'm actually building all the departments so they're strong enough to operate on their own. And I think for me, that's very important. They should still report to me, but I should not be the one who is actually preventing them from acting on their own. Right. So a good example
Yeah.
would be, let's say the marketing wants to do something that involves, development. Actually, the one I did was like the support people has a problem, come to me, and then me actually having to coordinate with the developers in order to get that resolved. this
Yeah.
this is not happening anymore at our company. Is the support will just directly communicate with development. And obviously it took some learnings in a sense that, first I was tagged in Slack like, hey Jeremy, we got this problem, whatever. I say like, well, it seems like it's a problem for, development. So can you actually tag this person instead? And I consciously actually rejected all those sort of like requests for me to do something. And I say, hey, what if I'm not here? And I discussed that with the team as well. It's like, we need to move into
Mhm,
a structure where if I'm not here, I'm not, I fall under a bus or whatever kind of thing happens, the company still operates without me being the critical element. I think that's a massive shift. And so we're still too small team to really um, have an organization that works fully without me. So I'm still very much involved, but I think it's like miles better, like miles better than 2 years ago,
yeah, for
where I
sure.
think you had like a
Okay.
much better organization from the start.
Yeah, that was like my focus from the beginning, right? Is for me, it was very much like, yeah, not a job, right? That was like kind of my mentality. Like, yeah, that was one of the most difficult things for me when starting ZenMade, was balancing it between like, I need to treat this like a business owner and that it's not a job, but I also need to treat it like it is a job in terms of just my mentality and like showing up every day and doing the work, right? Is I needed to treat it like my job, but also think about it like outside. It's like, for me, it's, I didn't pay myself any money until we were making $8,000 or $10,000 a month, because we literally were just taking that money and paying a VA to keep doing like more and more of the work, so I could just focus on higher and higher level things. And yeah, we always thought that it would come around to I guess where it kind of has like recently, right? That now that's beginning to really pay off. So
yeah, because at the beginning you probably need a lot of resources to do your approach. Where for me it was just like, I love coding, I love what I'm doing, and it's like, yeah, I'm just may well do it. And it's only later when it bite me in the ass after the migration that I realized this doesn't scale, this is not possible, and I really have just a job, not a company. Big realization here.
Yeah, definitely.
But you need capital if you want to go your road first, one way or another. Whether you're convince people, whether you give equity to people, but if you want someone else to execute, then they are going to have to be compensated.
Yeah, which can definitely be the challenge. So,
cool.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I mean, we should stop it here. Otherwise, we're gonna run for like 6 hours. And you guys can check out the next episode. Please do subscribe, like it if you like it. If you dislike it, just don't say anything. It's fine. Or send us a private email.
Yeah, no, if you don't like it, Jeremy's Twitter is Jay and then his last name.
It's a nice one. And if you like it, it's just all one word.
Yeah, on Twitter. Yeah. So give me a shout out if you enjoyed it. Throw Jeremy some shade if you didn't. And
there you go. That's the nature of our relationship.
Yeah. Should we just end the call and I'll just jump back on the same link?
Yes. Bye, everyone.